how to finish better music by working less. What? Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. A lot of people that I talk to, they don't have enough time. They don't feel like they have enough energy. It's going to be too hard, and they push off making music until they're in a better situation in which they can fully focus to doing so. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a simple workflow hack that will help you effortlessly create compelling and interesting tracks without the expectation of a ton of work to make amazing music. So let's break it down. Hey yo, it's Alex from Red in My Music. I'm a musician and certified audio engineer here to help you finish amazing music that you love. I help music artists compose, produce, and mix their own professional sounding tracks by using and leveraging a repeatable creative process. And in every single video, my mission is that you're going to get some actionable advice that you can immediately implement to help you level up as a music creator. So again, just give me 10 minutes. I'm going to show you a simple workflow hack that will help you effortlessly create compelling music, interesting tracks, even with little to no time. Okay, so let's break this down. The first thing that we have to talk about is this false belief that I used to have and that a lot of people I talk to have that isn't necessarily true. And what is it? That working hard equals good music. Or in other words, that the harder you work, the better your music will be. And why is this a problem? Is because a lot of people have the expectation that, hey, to finish music that's amazing, that moves people, that you love, that you're stoked about, you're going to have to put in this much effort in order to do so. Okay. And not saying that music is effortless and like it's easy, right? But it doesn't have to be hard either. And that's a false expectation, a false belief. And where the problem comes in is when people have this expectation of, oh, it's going to be so much work. I need enough time to do my music justice. If I want my music to sound good, I'm going to have to put in countless endless hours in the studio. And because of that expectation, you push it off. You're like, I don't have enough time to do this right now. I don't have enough energy after work. I don't have enough focus, right? All of this stuff to be able to make music at that level. And that is a false belief. Okay, there's countless examples out there. But for example, like Black Hole Sun, Soundgarden, like look into that song. Chris Cornell wrote that in 15 minutes. Do you think he worked super hard on it? No. And it's like, it comes from the wake, of course, from all of his experience, and he's a musical genius, of course. But it highlights the fact that effort does not necessarily correlate to quality. Okay, sometimes less effort actually correlates to better music. And a lot of us have to break down this false belief, okay? Because if I told you it's totally possible for you to make music at this quality that you're hoping for with very little work or effort or time, what comes up for you, right? If it's like disbelief and that's not possible, there's no way that could happen. I would invite you to look at that because it is totally true. And we're going to talk about how in just a sec, okay? So essentially, we got to break that down. Like, yo, to make good music, you do not need to break your back. You don't have to put a bunch of effort and like force it out. It can come out of you so long as you're consistent. And let's talk about that consistency. So the way to do this, right? It's a different approach than what most people do. Most people are in the studio and they just focus on one thing and they try to perfect this one thing and they work in a linear way. Okay, they try to take an idea all the way to a finished song and force it into place. Okay, and a lot of times writer's block will come up. They don't know where to take the song. They don't know if the idea is good. They get stuck in a loop. Then once you finally finish the arrangement, you're like, is something missing? What do I need to add to this? And it's like a very tough situation where it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a hill the whole time. And that's what most people know as the creative process. And I was one of those people where I did exactly that. I would just hyper focus and be like, if I put enough hard work and focus onto one thing, that eventually it will sound good. Eventually you'll get there. And this is true. If you keep doing that, you'll eventually get it to a place where you're happy, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of willpower and a lot of pushing and even a lot of time. So what's the alternative here? Well, I would frame that whole approach as what I call a linear process, okay, where you're taking an idea and then you're trying to develop that idea and immediately try to structure it into a song. And then from there, try to make this song sound good by adding extra layers and trying to see if you can create an arrangement, eventually edit it, mix it, and master it, right? So you're trying to take an idea to a finished track in a linear way. And the problem with this is, for example, what if that first idea never had the potential to be a great track? right? Then you're focusing all of your efforts to try and make a subpar idea or even a bad idea sound great through the process of iteration, editing, and continuing to develop it. Okay. Well, take this, for example. What if the first idea that you started naturally was a great idea and easily developed itself into a whole song, right? Like, you know how sometimes in the studio an idea comes, another idea comes, and you're like, oh my God, a whole song just came out of nowhere. And it's kind of like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Well, that's where the cyclical process comes in, which is my third point here. Okay. Well, anytime you're in the studio, there's going to be a percentage chance that it's going to be one of those days where things just click and something amazing happens. Okay. And if you hyper focus on any one idea, you're kind of confirming yourself into thinking that it's a good idea, and you're working on something that may or may not have the potential to be great. On the flip side, you're also diminishing the opportunity or your attempts to have a moment where it's like things just happen naturally, right? So this is where the power of a cyclical process comes in, where instead of trying to take an idea and move it to a finished track, okay, we are going to focus on trying to create a lot of ideas so that we can move just the best ones forward. Okay. And it's a fundamentally different approach, because when you're working on just the principle of creating ideas, instead of trying to make an idea move forward into a track, you lower the pressure and expectation of what this idea has to be. It's like, hey, I'm just creating an idea versus I need to try and make this idea turn into an awesome song, and all this pressure and all of this like categorization and trying to make something of what you're creating. Okay, so diminishes that. And on the flip side, it allows you so many more touch points to interface with ideas that in later, in retrospect, when you look at a large amount of ideas, it's so much easier to identify the ones that are the highest quality and curate the quality out of that larger body of ideas. And then from there, you're starting off with stronger ideas right off the bat to start to develop them and see where they could go in terms of a song, right? So it's a fundamentally different approach, and it reduces that pressure because all that you have to do is create ideas. They don't have to be good ideas. They can be bad ideas. It doesn't matter, because the goal is just to create ideas. Versus with the linear process, you're creating an idea with the expectation that it's going to go somewhere, that it's going to be good, that it's got to have to be a song, right? So this is a fundamentally difference. And then from there, you're curating quality in stages, right? So from there, all of these ideas, maybe, I don't know, 30% of them are actually good, right? And then from there, you're going to have some of those ideas of that 30%, right? That actually develop themselves easily and reveal themselves to you in terms of like, oh, this could be part 1, part 2, part 3, or chorus, verse, or here's your intro, here's your drop, here's your second drop, etc. And it's going to, a certain amount of those ideas are going to be so much easier to arrange than others. So again, all of those ideas don't have to be forced into a song arrangement right away. Just allow the ones that naturally want to be arranged, allow that to happen. And you do this by focusing in different stages instead of one line from beginning to end, right? Then from there, right, you get compositions that come together easily because you're working with ideas that already have a sense of where they want to go compositionally. Again, aiming for volume, because guess what? All your compositions won't be great, right? Some of them are going to be better than others. And you're going to be constantly practicing the skill of creating tracks without the pressure of it having to be an amazing track, right? And by virtue of doing so, you're going to make amazing tracks, right? So again, it's just a slight tweak in workflow that allows you the space to just engage with the creative act and not necessarily get hung up on creating something amazing or an end goal at any specific part in your process because of virtue of this approach. Okay, so let me show you just real quick a demo of what this is, and so you can understand it a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And here's my full-on template. If you want this other one, let me just create a new tab here. If you want this free version of a template for you to systemize this thing so you can keep track of your ideas, keep track of your better ideas, keep track of your compositions with checklists and like processes to move it forward and all this stuff, just comment down below. Happy to share it with you. Okay, but I'm going to be using the more advanced version of this for mine just to show you what I mean. So in this case, like, let's talk about calibrate. Okay, so what I do is I calibrate instruments that I can express myself with, right? And practice. So over time, you can really express yourself with this instrument, right? Maybe you increase the reverb, maybe you increase some effects, right? Etc. Same with drums, right? If I go to drums, okay, and I have all these effects, I have a bass, and this is all really quick for me to access for the purpose of allowing me to create a lot of ideas, right? So I could just 3 times a day, it doesn't take much time. Again, if you only have 10, 15 minutes, you could probably throw out a jam because you're just focused on creating ideas, right? You're not going to hold yourself up and try to edit things, and you just let it fly. See if you can come up with a cool progression. Maybe we like this progression, right? That's cool. And then cool, whatever, right? And it's you're not super concerned about errors or if you went off the rails, it's all good. And with that focus, it allows you to make progress even if you have very little time. And then the idea is volume here, right? So if I go back to my screen here, I'll show you an example where I did this a while ago and I'm just about to do another sprint like this. But if I go to my folder here, flow, which is what I call it in the system, I jammed out this many ideas. There's 80 ideas, just jamming, output, without too much focus on the quality. And guess what? There's probably I don't know, 6, 7, 8 tracks here that are almost already a track idea, just that I jammed out without having had to work harder on them than the ones that are kind of shitty, right? And then from there, right, you start to populate, okay, well, which ones of them are not bad, right? And then now you populate your system with them. So in this case, I probably got 20 ideas that some of them are just like a loop. Some of them are a little bit more than a loop. Some of them are almost a full track, right? But again, this just happened through a jam. And the next stage is now I'm going to look at these and start playing around with them, right? And the fact that you're segmenting your focus in these different stages allows you to make progress, even if you just have 10, 15 minutes a day, right? You just pop open one of these things, you follow the action items, and you start moving that ball forward a little bit. And by virtue of this, over time, some of them are going to become compositions. And then out of those compositions, some of them you want to finish, some of them you don't. And that's cool. And then eventually you get to a master stage where in this case, I just finished an album, getting ready for the next cycle, right? And it's all part of a process where, hey, if you only have half an hour a day, it's cool. You can still make progress and not have the pressure of having to create an amazing track at every single session. And just by virtue of doing this over time, you will get tracks finished. Okay. So again, if you want this free version to start this type of process and have fun and experiment, make it your own, just comment down below. Happy to share it. But that's what I want to say is the big thing here is the difference between a linear process and a cyclical process, right? It's a slight tweak in mindset. That's all it is. But it's allowing you the space to get volume out and to reduce the pressure of any particular result when you show up to the studio, where it's just hey, I only have 10 minutes today. I'm busy, right? I only have so much time. Cool. I'm going to crack open my system. I'm going to pop open my instruments and I'm going to let it rip and get a jam out. And I'm going to just record it. And that's it. And if you do that once a day for a week, you'll have 5 jams. You do that for 2 weeks, you might have 10 to 15 jams, right? Without having to spend hours in the studio. And guess what? A couple, 3 of them will probably be pretty decent, right? And then if you only have half an hour a day or whatever, then okay, take those decent ones, start playing with them and just continue that over time. And even with limited amount of time, you will get compositions to the place where they're full tracks. And then from there, you can just continue to go in chunk by chunk to edit them, mix them, and master them, and still make progress, even if you don't have a tremendous amount of time. Okay, so that's what I got for you today. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know in the comments down below.